My name is Jeremy Pine, and I'm the staff liaison with the US Federation of Worker Cooperatives International Council. The International Council was founded just about a year ago at the National Worker Co-op Conference, officially. And during that time, we have been a small group of people that are trying to find ways to serve the members of the US Federation, to help them learn more about international movements, as well as find opportunities for learning and sharing of best practices. Today, we have a few welcome remarks about the Federation itself, and then we have our three speakers that I'll just give a brief introduction to the speakers. Camila Pinheiro Harnecker is the Practice Area Director for Strengthening Cooperatives and Producer Organizations at NCBA CLUSA. She has over 25 years of cooperative development experience with an emphasis on worker cooperatives and social and solidarity economy institutions. Her research, consultancy, teaching, and training has focused on the cooperative sector and public policy, cooperative governance and management, and cooperative support ecosystems. Before joining NCBA CLUSA in 2019, Camila worked as a researcher at American University, the University of California at Riverside, and the Center for the Study of Cuban Economy at the University of Havana. Our next speaker, Jason Nardi, is the president of RIES, the Italian Solidarity Economy Movement, and the co-founder of Solidaritas Italia, the Italian branch of an international network that promotes all aspects of the solidarity economy ecosystem. For 5 years, he was the coordinator of the International Council of RIPES, the International Network for the Promotion of the Social Solidarity Economy, and is currently a general delegate of RIPES EU. RIPES brings together grassroots initiatives, cooperative and social enterprises, academic and institutional members from around the world. RIPES is recognized by the UN's Economic and Social Council and is a member of the United Nations Interagency Task Force on Social and Solidarity Economy. Our third speaker will be Diana Dovgan. Since 2018, Diana has been the Secretary General of both CICOPA, the International Organization of Cooperatives in Industry and Services, and CECOP, the European Confederation of Cooperatives in Industry and Services. Previously, she was the policy officer for 10 years of both organizations. She is a member of, I'm not sure how it's pronounced, GECES maybe? The European Commission's expert group on the solidarity economy. From 2004 to 2008, she was policy advisor for the Belgian minister in charge of social inclusion and equal opportunities. Before we get started with our speakers, we just have a few events and things about the Federation that I'd like to share with everyone. On early October, we have a webinar on worker cooperative startups. Later, we have a Policy and Advocacy Council meeting, and our annual fall member meeting is happening on the 12th of October. Somewhere in the chat, and while I'm speaking, you'll see a link to this slide set, which will have clickable links that you'll be able to sign up for things as well. Also, right now, we have open enrollment for our worker benefits program. Please, if you are one of our members and you want to make sure that you have worker benefits, just register according to the link. As I mentioned, the member meeting is taking place on October 12th. You can register through these slides. And if you'd like to sustain our work, we'd really appreciate it. We'd love to have more people helping us build a worker-led economy here in the US. There are also scholarships for events that we have. So if you are worried about costs, please be in contact with us. We want to make everything as accessible as possible for everyone who's interested in learning. There's more new resources from our co-op clinic, mini guides about how to start up and embed your cooperative. All of these are available, and please just click through. Now, I would like to pass our baton over to Camila so we can all learn about NCBA CLUSA together. Let me stop screen sharing. There we go.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me and do you see the screen before I continue? Yes. Hi again, and thank you to the Federation for this invitation. I'm an admirer of the work of the Federation, and as you can see from my bio, that's the sector within cooperative that I have focused my work. So very happy to be here with you all today. I'm going to be presenting about the work that CECOP does internationally, around specifically cooperative development. First, just in case you are not aware what CECOP is, CECOP is the oldest and largest U.S. trade association for cooperatives. So pretty much like the umbrella organization for cooperatives in the U.S. It's more than 100 years old. And you can see that the Federation is one of our members. We have federations, like in all the sectors, economic activities. We also have primary cooperatives and individuals who are members. And our mission since ever has been to develop, advance, and protect the cooperative business model. And mainly we do this through advocacy, thought leadership, education, and training. And the last point, more relevant to today, which is supporting and leading cooperative and community development projects in the US and abroad. So very briefly, as I mentioned, we started in 1916 as the Cooperative League of the USA, and around 30 years later, we at the end of the Second World War, we were CECOP helped establish CARE then, which meant Cooperative for Assistance and Remittances to Europe. So 30 years after the start of CECOP, there was this need as good cooperators to support others in need, and that meant supporting people in Europe rebuild after the war, right? I don't know if people are aware of the important role that cooperatives played in reconstruction after the Second World War II. And so in the 50s, the Indian government requested support from CECOP with cooperative development. And one of the flagships that we always bring about from that period was that we supported with other organizations the creation of IFCO, the Indian Farmer Fertilizers Cooperative, which is has I think around 3 million members, and is one of the largest cooperatives in India, and is moving more towards organic fertilizers. So I'm not gonna go into all the details, but you can see from the beginning, CECOP early on was committed to supporting cooperatives in other places, and we have helped within the U.S. government establish programs that are long-term that ensure that we are able to do this work with other organizations. So some of these programs that we implement are funded by USA, but also the Department of Agriculture and other foundations and private foundations and other governments, but it's mainly from the US government. And I don't know how many people are familiar with all these programs, but these are some of the major programs that are funded by USAID and US Department of Agriculture. And you can see that through these fundings, CECOP in 2022 was able to implement around 17 projects in 19 countries, reaching more than 7,000 organizations and 100,000 people. And some of them, around 40% were active cooperative members. So the portfolio is a multi-year, so it's not a one-year portfolio. Very quickly, this is just for those who want to go deeper into all the work that CECOP does. I'm just gonna say that we have 3 practice areas or areas of expertise, and the last one in blue is strengthening cooperatives and producer groups. That's the one that I'm coordinating, and we do everything that is related or around cooperative development. We have, of course, cross-cutting technical areas related to monitoring, evaluation and learning, and social inclusion. And so around cooperative development, all the work we do, as it should, is always locally led, right? Like the organizations that we are supporting in other countries have a say in what we do, right? And they participate from the beginning of the design of the projects and the activities. It's always based on what they need, and if it doesn't make sense, we don't do it. It's based on their needs and their priorities, and of course has to be aligned with the donors' objectives, and it's always based on collaboration, learning, and adaptation. We learn from each other, we collaborate, we work together, and we adapt to changing circumstances and from our own learnings, right? And so very briefly, we can say that the work that we do around cooperative development is all around capacity development. That we don't work only with cooperative, we also work with what we call producer organizations, which can be association, producer groups, so more like what we say pre-co-ops, or organizations that have the potential to, if not formally become cooperatives, commit to the values and principles, to the extent that is possible and makes sense. And so, of course, we work with these cooperatives, focusing on their organizational strengthening, but we know that they need to deliver to the members. So anything that the cooperative needs in terms of insertion or how to get better located into the value chain and trade. And we do think that intercooperation is key for the success of any cooperative, particularly if their goals is to have a positive impact in their communities. So we try to facilitate this intercooperation. And also something that we do is to strengthen those local entities that have as a mandate to support cooperatives, right? So like this can be public or private institutions, organizations that are in these countries. And so we make sure that they are part of the projects, and that we to see how what we do can also help strengthen, so that there is sustainability in this impact, in this activity. We also have, for the last 15 years or so, work around legal and regulatory reform, because as part of the cooperative movement, and I think leading with the worker cooperative sector, it has been obvious that legal and regulatory barriers hinder the development of cooperative in many places. And so we have also, part of our work has been to facilitate reform of existing legislation and promoting new legislation when that is needed. And more recently, we have made an effort focusing around financial inclusion and the potential that cooperatives have, to facilitate this financial inclusion or access to finance, as well as how we help members and organizations adapt and mitigate climate change. Of course, we know cooperatives are all around social inclusion, but there is cooperative could do much better in that regards, especially in some cooperative, particularly farmer cooperative, which are the main cooperatives we work with. Very quickly, I'm just going to present or share this cooperative business school that we have developed as a result of the impact of the pandemic in some of the countries where we work, where we were not able to work in person for a long time. So we developed this online platform that has courses, helps organize and hold virtual events, share resources, organizations can take this test to make sure they identify what their needs are in terms of training, and also what are the resources that they can find in their countries. The new website doesn't look like this. We just relaunched it a couple of, I think last week, but you can see the website there is businessschool.coop. And we have been, able to, we know online education is not the best, but sometimes it makes it, especially if we're trying to reach women and young people, we have found that it was very effective in reaching these populations. And so we are happy that it has reached many people. Initially, it was mostly young people and women. But as they help other people, like in their families and organizations, get on in the school, the participation of men and older people has increased. And so this is a resource for anyone in the co-op space that we are open to sharing. If you want to partner with us, or if you have knowledge that you want to share that is useful, or if you want to participate as a student, we are in the process of expanding to the US with the help of one of our projects. And so that the courses that are offered are more in response to the needs of some cooperatives and cooperative developers in the US. Since I don't have much time, I'm just going to say that the way we do our work is following the CLUSA approach, which is approach that was developed by two of our facilitators in the field in Africa in around 82, I believe, and is characterized by local decision-making, training at the local level, and it has to be intensive experiential training, based on their organizational needs of these groups and organizations, and always linking this training to concrete results related to their business operations, making an emphasis that, as we know, cooperatives are business, they need to be profitable, they have to have surpluses that they can use to maintain the business and better serve their members, and also focusing on a systems approach, right? So like looking at the organization and the systems in which they are embedded. And we have more information about this, but just so I thought it would be important to share. Finally, I think it would be important to mention that we are also members of the International Cooperative Alliance and of the regional in the Americas called Cooperatives of the Americas. Our former chair of NCUA CLUSA board is part of the management board of the Cooperatives of the Americas. We also participated in the International Cooperative Development Platform that was part of the International Alliance. And yeah, we're very much part of the cooperative movement, global movement, and try to contribute as much as possible and be as active as possible. Also in some of the committees like the Agricultural Cooperative, and we also support CICOPA, which US Federation also participates. In the US, there is an organization called US Overseas Cooperative Development Council. We are a founding member. This brings together all the cooperative development organizations in the US that do international work. And also part of AMEA, which is a network more focused in agriculture. And these are some of the major memberships. And just to close, I think once we were told to prioritize which of all the sustainable development goals NCUA CLUSA contributed the most, and then we decided that our work is focused on poverty reduction, but giving agency to people, using the cooperative model and principles as much as possible, focusing on zero hunger, gender equality, decent work, economic growth, and of course, responsible consumption production. And for all of this, we know partnerships are key. So I'll stop there, and thanks again for the invitation.
Thank you so much, Camila. Just for anyone who's joining, we had a technical issue of sharing slides, so unfortunately we were not able to translate the slides today. There is a Spanish language version of that presentation, and if you would like to receive that, please email me directly. I'm putting my email in the chat right now. And just send those requests to me and I will make sure that it will be forwarded onward. Thank you. And okay. Now I would like to invite Jason Nardi to begin speaking. Jason?
Yes, hi everyone, and very pleased and grateful to be here and to meet people from the other side of the world. And actually, as you will see, I will speak of both global and international networks and local networks. As solidarity economy is really a bit of both. It's a global movement in many ways. Do you see the slides? Okay, and I don't know if you can see it better this way. Okay, so I'll do a presentation of RIPES, but then I'll try to answer a few questions that Jeremy sent me, and especially the connections with the cooperative movement, of course, which are differentiated in many ways, but are definitely there. So what is RIPES? It's a network of networks of networks. That is, it brings together many different forms of territorial cooperations and circuits, of sectoral networks, say fair trade, solidarity finance, food corporations, etc., and intersectoral ones as well. It was born around 1997 in Latin America, and that there the influence is very strong of the solidarity part of the social solidarity economy, with the movements for popular economy and liberation, philosophy and theology, and meeting with the more traditional social economy from North America and Europe, that is the mutualistic movement, the workers' movements, the cooperative movements, and further on with other social justice movements and fair trade, etc. Now, all of this went together with a number of big meetings every time in a different continent, creating this intercontinental movement, and in trying to intersect with other social movements or environmental movements, especially through the World Social Forum and other convergence spaces. So today there's RIPES in every continent, although at different levels in the different continents. So you have USEN, the United States Solidarity Economy Network, and you have several networks in Canada. You have about 30 networks in Latin America, 44 in Europe, etc., etc. The European network was not one of the first. Actually, it came pretty late, in just about now 12 years ago. We celebrated the 10 years 2 years ago, and it was founded in Barcelona, and today has members in 22 countries, not only of the EU, I mean, we have UK, for instance, and Switzerland, but also Russia and Turkey, for instance. So our idea of Europe goes beyond the political Europe, let's say. And here you see sort of a picture of the many different kinds of networks and organizations. Some are tied to universities, some are with local authorities, some are with the cooperative movement, some are territorial networks, which are network city and regional networks.
Sorry, Jason, you
Yes.
said here we can see, did you
I did
plan to
switch.
move to a new slide?
I switched already 3 slides. You haven't seen those?
No,
Oh, okay.
we're only seeing the first slide still.
Okay, let's see what happened here. Can you see it now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so I'll switch back to this and this. But I'll leave you the slides so they can be then distributed if you want. Okay, so now we're focusing a bit more down to the Italian network, RIES. So this is like an example of the different networks, among the more maybe developed, and together with the Spanish and the French networks, the Portuguese ones. Those are the more historical ones. Whereas today we're working a lot in Central and Eastern Europe to develop their national or regional networks much more. The kind of organizations that are part of RIES are some are quite organized. We call them districts of solidarity economy, DES, and they comprise of some local producers, enterprises, distributors, consumer groups, local authorities, sometimes academic institutions that we work with, etc. So the idea is to have a sort of local marketplace, which is not only economic exchange, but also cultural exchange, social and mutual exchanges as well. And then there's CSAs like community supported agriculture, food co-ops, fair trade, community co-ops, up to having forms of self-organized villages like the eco-villages and the eco-villages movement, and so on. Now, the last years have been hard for everyone and also for the solidarity economy movement. But on the other hand, it has been an opportunity to sort of create a new wave and involve a lot of young people in trying to come out from the multiple crises that we're in and try to imagine and be conscious of the possibility of building a different society. The strategy we have both in RIES and at the European level is threefold, mainly. One is to build the territorial ecosystems and support the emergence of these networks and practices, and therefore also to help the intercooperation among the different members and organizations. The second is institutional recognition, so the normative and the regulations and also deregulations in some instances where there are obstacles to the emergence and development of more informal kind of exchanges. Say, for instance, the use of local currencies or things like that. And therefore, the advocacy that we do with at both local and EU level. And then the third is be part of a larger movement and strengthen the social solidarity economy movement, but mainly through campaigning and through alliances with what we call transformative economy movements. And for this, we organized in 2019 and 2020 a World Social Forum of Transformative Economies, inviting many different networks from mainly Europe, but also all around the world. Unfortunately, we were going to celebrate it in Barcelona in 2020, but COVID came in between, so we had to transfer everything online, and it wasn't exactly the same thing. What were we looking at when we talk about transformation of the economy? Well, we're looking at how we transform power, the power dimensions from concentrated and hierarchical power to distributed forms of power, also inside our organizations, how we transform knowledge and culture and make it free and open and available to all, with the approach of the commons. Economy and finance, so relocalizing most of the economy, working on food sovereignty, on energy communities, and all the different forms where we can put solidarity and mutualism inside the equation. And then, of course, transforming the relationship we have with nature, regaining a position that we have lost with the globalization of economy. And we're also seeing that together with the growth of ecological movements, there's, in a sense, the generations that are coming now are the children of the financial crisis. Actually, we should put a plural here, and of the huge ecological crisis that we have. So we're trying to link a bit all of these things, but the solidarity is strongly linked with the idea of democracy, of a strong solidarity and a strong democracy. The cooperative movement had a very important role, as was said before, in the reconstruction after the Second World War, and that was the political form of cooperation that we also advocate for, the strong self-organization, the commons approach, and the fact that we mutualize our resources. And we want to go from an egoistic form of economy to an ecological or ecosystemic form of economy. And just to quickly give you other glimpses inside what we mean by solidarity economy, there's a big chunk, the biggest chunk of the economy that is invisible. It's the part underneath of the iceberg. It's what is not accounted for, what is not inside the GNP, and what is the care economy, the subsistence economy, etc. And instead of commodifying nature and so on, we want to value this in a different way. So, to sum up, in a sense, what social solidarity economy is, and we use social without the and solidarity economy because we want a solidarity social economy, in a sense, is that we can respond to human needs through economic activities that can also be non-monetary, but they must be definitely linked with social justice, with the ecological wholeness, and with forms of community building, democracy strengthening, and deliberative democracy especially, and self-organization, self-management. There are many forms of alternatives. I won't go through the whole list here, but what we try to do is to network them and to create sort of pacts between the different forms. So in housing, in finance, in commerce and trade, but also in different new forms of production, fab labs and places where you repair things or you share things, etc. We think that we can have an economy which is a post-growth form of economy, and we need the collaboration of all the alternatives form of economy, the older ones that have a history and a big experience, and the new forms that are emerging as well. And well, I'll go very fast here, but because I want to get to this part, yeah, about how solidarity economy has a bit all the different aspects of the economic sort of circle. So it is a form of circular economy, but in a way it puts social justice and democracy at the center, and the needs at the center. So it's not about recycling or that. It's much more. It's about creating relations and trust among all the different components, and redefining what growth is, what success is. For instance, solidarity economy organizations are scalable, but they multiply and replicate instead of becoming bigger. There is a certain size beyond which the democratic relationships are no longer possible. So you have to split and create corporations among the new entities. And finally, sort of the dream is about decommodifying everything that has been privatized and commodified, redesigning our spaces, the cities, with a strong emphasis on the commons and the shared spaces, and the approach to the countryside and nature is agroecological, so it's also very community-based and integrated approach. So I think that's pretty much, and we have different challenges. And for this, I don't know, I've been speaking too much probably, Jeremy, so you stop me. But for this, it's important to understand that there's evolutions also in the way we relate with the legal forms that we work with. And we can think of expanding.
Yeah, we're just at about time, but we do have half an hour for question and answers after the next
So
speaker.
I'll finish with this slide. So, for instance, in Italy, we have, I don't know, some 15 different forms of legal entities for cooperatives. We have workers' cooperatives, agricultural cooperatives, housing cooperatives, social cooperatives, transport cooperatives, credit cooperatives, mutual finance cooperatives, and we have a new form, which is a sort of a hybrid, which is the community cooperative, where we can put, it's a multi-stakeholder kind of co-op. And we think that cities can become, in some sense, cooperatives in themselves, in the way they are managed and in the way they can approach the economy. We need more community forms of enterprises, which are both publicly and citizen-owned. And we have to improve the idea that the public is not only state. We can have non-state public properties, let's say, with commoning and with territorial pacts of collaboration. And these still don't have really regulations. Maybe we don't want them to have regulations, but we want them to have the space to explore and create different forms where people, citizens, residents of all sorts, with no discrimination, can come together and self-manage these services or spaces. And this is what we're looking forward to in a time of huge pressure, urgency, crisis, where we have to continuously find ways to react, and we have always less space. It's shrinking to create, but we really have to try to keep this creative part going. And I think the collaboration that can come from the different movements is very important in this sense. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jason. That was very interesting. I do other work with social solidarity economy, so I'm a little bit more familiar with it, but I know that for many of our cooperators, the movement outside of the US is kind of maybe unfamiliar. So next, before we move on to Diana, I just wanted to say if any of the newcomers are having problems with interpretation, please send a message to Kate. Kate will help you get anything in order that you might need. And so next, I invite Diana to speak, and let me share your slides.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you for inviting me to this webinar. I'm really glad to meet many of you, and also to listen to the other presentations. I am the Secretary General of CICOPA, which is the international organization representing cooperatives active in the sectors of industry and services. I will come back to that. I mean, I will give more details about that. Just to say that I'm currently in Brussels, Belgium. So hello from Europe. This is where our office is based. Next slide, please. So CICOPA has been established more than 70 years ago. So we are not that young. CICOPA is the sector organization of the International Cooperative Alliance, the ICA. You will see a bit, we can move on already on the next slide. I think it's going to be easier because now we are entering in this a bit complex architecture of the cooperative, the cooperative family. So here on the top, you see the ICA, the International Cooperative Alliance. It has 8 sector organizations. You can see CICOPA here in blue for industry and services, but that there are 7 other sectorial organizations of the ICA for other sectors such as for agriculture, fisheries, health, consumers, housing, banking, and insurance. And I think here it's a bit similar to the American context with NCBA, who's this organization by sectors. We CICOPA, we also have regional offices. For the moment 3, but we hope to see a 4th one sometime soon. We have an office in Europe, which is called CECOP, or CICOPA Europe. By the way, I am the Secretary General of both organizations, of CICOPA and of CECOP. And why? Because CECOP is hosting the Secretariat, the team of CICOPA. It's kind of an agreement that CICOPA historically had with CECOP, so that we share the staff. So this is why I have this double hat. And the CECOP office is based in Brussels, Belgium, because the European institutions, European Parliament, European Commission are based here in Brussels. So this is why also the CICOPA staff is based in Brussels. We also have a regional office for Americas called CICOPA Americas, which is, by the way, which has 2 sub-regional organizations, CICOPA North America. The chair is Daniela Preisler. I think I saw her connected online. Hi, Daniela. And the other one is CICOPA Mercosur. And the more recently created last year is the CICOPA Asia Pacific office, but very quickly growing. And we, as I said before, we hope to see soon the creation of CICOPA Africa. Next slide, please. So, where do you stand in this architecture, in this table? So, for example, a worker co-op based in US is affiliated, pays membership fees, for example, to the US Worker Co-op Federation. Camila, correct me if I'm not wrong. Then I think the US Worker Co-op Federation is a member of NCBA CLUSA, and NCBA CLUSA is a member of ICA. I see Camila is agreeing. So this is how we are all connected. So US Worker Co-op Federation through ICA is a member of CICOPA. To be a member of CICOPA, you need to be a federation. So we do not affiliate directly a cooperative. we only affiliate corporations and federations, and you need to be a member of ICA or member of a member, which is the case of the US Worker Confederation. So this is how we are connected. So we can say that CICOPA as well represents you directly. I mean, worker cooperatives in US. Next slide, please. Some data about us. We have 55 members all around the globe. There will be a map just after it, so you will see a bit to be clear. So we have members in 36 countries. As I said before, our members are national federations of cooperatives representing worker cooperatives or organized as a federation of cooperatives in industry and services. It depends on the country. In some countries, federations are organized by typology of cooperatives, like in the US, it's a federation of worker co-ops. While, for example, in Italy, you will have a cooperative federation, or in Spain, organized by the sector of its activity, industry and services. In our network, we say that we represent more or less 65,000 cooperative enterprises across the globe, which employ more or less 4 million workers. But we know that beyond our network, there are much more worker cooperatives, so they are not all linked to us, not yet. I mean, this is also our objective, of course, is to connect all the organizations representing worker cooperatives around the world. But we know that indeed, as you can see here, the numbers are much more bigger than what we represent. Next slide, please. So here comes the map. As you can see, most of our members are located in Europe. I mean, there are some historical regions for that. I mean, this is where the worker cooperatives have been historically born. And then you see the Americas and Asia Pacific are quite equal. In Africa, for the moment, we don't have much members, and this is mainly for the reason I said before, because in Africa, first, our sectors are the less developed in terms of cooperatives. You will much more found agriculture cooperatives, saving cooperatives than worker cooperatives. And the other reason is that they are not often organized as sectorial federations. But I mean, we are working to build more strong links with the African cooperative movement. I just put some updates here because the map is a bit old. And yes, of course, I mean, our member in US is the US Worker Co-ops Federation. I think I made a mistake in the acronym. And Esteban Kelly, that you might know, is a board member of CICOPA, as well as Daniela Preisler, automatically as a representative of CICOPA North America. She's also a board member of CICOPA. So you can see that US is well represented in CICOPA board, and we are quite close. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is also some data from 2016, a bit old. We are currently doing an ambitious data update, but as you can imagine, at a global level, at world level, it's not an easy task, because not all members have very accurate data. But this is just for you to see a bit the sectors that we can find in CICOPA. Here they're classified according to the international standards, NACE standards, but industry includes, I mean, a very big variety, from manufacturing to electronics to IT, craft, textile, ceramic, etc. Services include care, education, culture, tourism, transport, etc. And the construction sector is quite clear. So, and service sector is the most growing, definitely in our family. Next, please. Now I'm going to show you a data according to typologies. So you see that 74% of the cooperatives from our network are worker cooperatives. And then the second biggest category are social cooperatives, which are, what we call them, cooperatives either providing care or social services, or cooperatives dedicated to work integration of disadvantaged groups. But we also have producer cooperatives. We're trying to define this typology. We also call it cooperatives among independent producers or self-employed. So it can also be cooperatives of freelancers or platform cooperatives or cooperatives among self-employed people. Next, please. So that was about the typology. What do we do? I would say we have four main areas of activities. Advocacy, it's one of our most important. We represent the interest of our cooperatives, first inside the ICA. So also sometimes, even though we are the same family, sometimes you also need to bring the voice of your sector, of your typology inside the bigger cooperative family. I guess it's the same. You encounter the same situation in US, and that's what we do in the ICA. We bring the voice of worker cooperatives and social cooperatives, but also within international organizations. So, for example, with the United Nations, we mostly work with its agency dealing with employment, International Labour Organization. Just to give you, for example, one of the recent areas of work we are working on with, the ILO will start working on international standards for platform work. For example, this is an important file for us because as you can imagine, we are here first to promote cooperatives as a viable and quality solution for workers to be organized in platforms, but also to bring some quality standards in this area of work that we know is very much suffering from poor working conditions. So this is just one example of a recent file we're working with the ILO. Network, we are not just a federation of enterprises, we are also a place where members, meaning the federations, can learn from each other. So we organize a lot of activities, peer learning activities, mutual learning sessions, etc. But we're also a place for intercooperation. We help members to connect each others, but also for international solidarity. And we have seen over the last months and years in some situations of conflict, war, or natural disaster, we can also organize international solidarity inside our family. Knowledge, we also try to follow up the latest trends when it comes to our cooperatives. Of course, we are not a study, we are not a research center, but we also produce some reports and studies that you can also see on our website. We try to follow the latest trends. Development, we also provide advice. We advise governments willing to, for example, support development of worker cooperatives in the countries. Recently, over the last years, we had such a project with the government of Greece, or most recently Singapore, who was, for example, the government was looking to find a solution for freelancers and wanted us to advise them how to create cooperatives among freelancers. So we will provide this kind of advice to government as well. And we will also support the establishment of new federation of worker cooperatives in the countries where they do not exist yet. Next, please.
And calling 2 more minutes.
2 more, okay, I think we're there. This is just some examples of activities we provide to our members. Many of them were mentioned before, but we have an internal newsletter called CICOPA Link. We organize now, of course, many gatherings online, but also we really try to give a great visibility to our members and also speak about them, what they do, etc. And we also try to make the cooperatives visible, even though our main interlocutor, we mainly talk with federations. We also try to write coop stories so that people can see and imagine men and women who are behind the federations, and so we cherish these activities as well. Next slide, please. I think it's more or less all. I just put here some resources that can be interesting for you. It's interesting just to know that we do have a World Declaration of Worker Cooperatives that we have agreed among all the countries in CICOPA what a worker cooperative is, and this is very interesting to see that we share that with some very different continents and countries and contexts around the world. We have the same for social cooperatives. We have the world standards on the social cooperatives, and those are other reports that you can find on our website. And last slide, I think that is, I just put some, calendar, next events that you might be interested in. There's a very great event happening at the end of this week in Bologna, Italy. This year is going to be very much in Europe. But it will be possible to stream it, to follow it online, and it's going to be it's called Coding. We're going to discuss cooperation around the use of digital and new technologies in cooperatives, and it's going to be the first gathering of tech coops. First international gathering of tech coops. So if you're interested to at least follow streaming, you can find all the information on our website. You can register, then you'll receive the link. We also organize every year a Social Cooperatives International School with our Italian members together in Naples. This is only in person, unfortunately. And then soon in November, we'll also have a workshop on platform work. And the cooperative, of course, answer to the platform work challenge during the European Social Economy Conference in Spain, and hopefully it will be streamed as well, but I need to confirm that. So this is where you can follow us, and thank you for attention, and I will be very happy to answer any question you might have. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Diana. I will be taking part in the Social Cooperative International School in Naples in October. So if any of our members want to learn more about it, I'll be reporting back to the International Council. So please take part in that, and we'll be glad to share more information as that comes out. So Tamina, can you share some of the questions that came up during the chat as people spoke?
Sure. One of the first questions that came up was a question for some resources. Abe said, does anyone have any resources on the partly state-owned solidarity economy enterprises? It seems a contradictory concept. I'd like to read more. Check.
Jason, can you say anything, or Camila, anything about partially state-owned social solidarity enterprises?
Yeah, I think I know where this. I think I know what is being asked. I think Diana and Jason might be better prepared to respond. I think the question is around what we in some places is called social cooperatives, like in Italy, and solidarity cooperatives, which is not that common in Canada, but I think what this question is referring to is to like some participation that local governments can have in social or solidarity cooperative boards, right? And that's fascinating question. I think this is related to governance models for multi-stakeholder cooperatives, right? Which I think is the future for the present and the future for cooperatives. We're really interested in expanding cooperatives' impact, right? So, but I will let Jason and Diana respond because they know much better than what I can say.
Please, Diana.
Indeed, Camila, you said it very well. We do have some examples in Italy, in France. I mean, not only of multi-stakeholder cooperatives, there where local authorities can be one of the of stakeholder, one of the member of the cooperative. But what it's important to underline is at the end, the cooperative is always an independent and autonomous structure, because this is also one of our key cooperative principles, right? We see that this is very much the case in the sector of services of general interest. That's how we call in Europe services of general interest, which are services such as care, education, culture, etc. So traditionally, services that were funded by the state, but with the privatization of those services, we see much more community-based reactions. And this is also where sometimes public authorities enter. And this multi-stakeholder model seems to be to fit quite well, because because it guarantees that the interests of different stakeholders are taken into account, and this is also a very interesting model. In Italy, for example, cooperatives are very much cooperating with public authorities through public contracts. When, for example, municipalities, cities are purchasing some, externalizing some services, they will organize tenders, and they will, so they have very a long history and track of cooperation. But what is interesting is that they're in some key sectors, for example, as care sector, they're so well recognized by the public authorities that they're also entering in a phase of co-creation of the service. Very often we see public authorities inviting social cooperatives before they even think of launching the tender, to co-design the service for the elderly or for some vulnerable citizens. So it's a very interesting level of cooperation between public authorities and cooperatives.
Great, thank you. Did you have anything you wanted to add, Jason, or is that wrap up most of it?
No, I mean that says most of it. I think that underlying the fact that there should be, a cooperative has to be a self-managed organization, and it can have different stakeholders, different forms of membership, but it has to maintain its independence, so it's not state-owned. But it can work on state-owned premises, and we have different examples. Also a lot in France, for instance, of what they call third places, tiers-lieux, which are these spaces where there's the collaboration among many different enterprises, cooperatives, freelancers, cultural, and etc. One thing, example from Italy, where maybe we're forward or backward in different ways. There's a tendency now to privatize the welfare towards co-ops because they cost less, and because the workers at that point that don't have a state contract, but they have a private contract, they can be like teachers, for instance. This is typical in the educational sector. They can be dismissed very easily or taken only when needed. And this creates precarity instead of a good economy. So we have to be really careful at how this is used.
Thank you very much. Tamina, what was the next question that came up in the chat?
Yeah, the next question is from Terry Sternberg and Laurie Simmons. The question is, in general, how are cooperatives faring when they have to compete in the capitalist economy? Check.
If I may try to interpret this toward our international folks, I think that in the US, co-ops are always at a disadvantage, almost always. And maybe this is a way to ask, what are some of the ways that cooperatives have proved to be more competitive in other situations? Did I interpret that correctly, Terry and Laurie? Okay, great.
Yes. I can break the ice again. But I think there are plenty of studies that show that there is a myth, like it's very useful myth capitalist empowers a B to try to diminish cooperatives as a legitimate form of organization of people and particularly workers. But there is plenty of research that compares. I was just looking at a very recent study that I can share in the chat later that compares all the studies that have studied performance of cooperatives with a focus in agriculture, but their literature research was global, like cooperative in all sectors and everywhere. And in some of those studies that look at the performance of cooperative compares with similar investor-owned firms or capitalist firms, right? And I haven't looked at the conclusions of those because the paper wasn't about what is coming out, but I think until a few years back, there are authors that have studied this in depth. I suggest looking into books coordinated by Virginie Perotin. She's in Brussels, some university in Brussels, if I'm not mistaken, or in the UK. And there are plenty of studies that show that if you compare cooperatives, particularly also like worker cooperative with similar investor-owned firms, you see. And there is a study that the Federation also did that shows less turnover. There is less income inequality. There is also better sense, better, I would say, like satisfaction at the workplace. And also in terms of, business performance. They're not going to cut costs and the same way and grow as fast as similar capitalist business, but they are going to take care better of the workers. There is also a study I saw done by the Democracy at Work Institute that look at what cooperative did during the pandemic compared to other businesses. So I think there is plenty of evidence to show that cooperative can perform, looking at a very narrow understanding of efficiency or like performance. They can be as productive, efficient as similar investor-owned firms. And if you look at a broader sense of efficiency or like benefits to society, cooperative can contribute much more, no? I'll stop there and I'll look for the links to share.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Did either of our other speakers have anything to add, or should we go to the next question? Okay, Tamina, please.
Yeah, maybe I can add just a few words. I don't know while we wait if there's other questions. I think one advantage is the profit reinvestment that cooperatives do. So instead of accumulating and dispersing any profit that is made, it's reinvested in the organization itself, and that helps strengthen it. I have an example also of, and there are several in other countries, but in Italy, there are some worker-owned factories that are doing pretty well because of the relations that exist within the workplace and also the capability of crowdfunding, for instance, for equity or of involving the community around them. So they become an actor in the community, and there they have, in a sense, a competitive advantage. But of course, in the market itself, no, they're definitely disadvantaged if we apply the rules of the capitalist market.
Okay, Tamina?
Yes, so the next two questions are from John Abrams. I'll read the first one. The first is, I am trying to find data about how many worker cooperatives exist worldwide and their distribution country by country. Can any of you direct me to such information? So that's a request for information about worker co-ops worldwide, country by country. And then the second question is for Diana. It is, in terms of numbers of worker owner members, Diana, your slides indicated 11.5 million worldwide outside CICOPA/ICA and 4 million within. Is that a correct interpretation? Check.
The first question is we try to have this calculation of the number of worker co-ops worldwide and the situation per country. Well, it's not an easy task for two reasons. The first one is because I said before, not all cooperative federations do data collection. I mean, it seems maybe weird, but I mean, there are also some very small and little federations. They have kind of an estimation, but they don't have an accurate data. Also, because in some countries, because of the legal framework, there's no proper legal framework for worker cooperatives. We are trying, we did this exercise in 2016. So on our website, you can find, I think it's called the CICOPA employment report, but I mean, you will see in the list of publications, we try to provide data beyond our own networks, and that also responds to the second question. Indeed, thanks to this report, we were able to estimate also the number of worker members, not just in the CICOPA in the CICOPA network, but beyond. And we did some interviews with some countries and some researchers, some experts in the countries where CICOPA had no members. So yeah, the data is a complex thing, and now this year we are updating our data. So we hope next year that we will be able to publish a report with an update of the situation of worker cooperatives at the global level. So we hope we will be able to come with new data, and we are looking not just a number of cooperatives, but also we're trying to analyze the trends to see in which sectors they're active, proportion of worker members, of course, and typologies that they will have, etc. So I hope we will be able to bring you more updated data soon.
Okay, did that answer both of these questions properly? Maybe we should move on to the next question.
So the next question that I am seeing is from Melissa. Melissa asked in Spanish. I'm going to translate it into English. Melissa is asking about exchange opportunities to visit other co-ops, especially in Italy, to learn more about the system, the ecosystem. I'm going to take some moderator privileges and also mention that Richard Hobbs of Human Agenda posted a message earlier and their email address, and they do some visits to Italy. And Melissa, I've responded with that information in response to your question, but also want to open it up to the panelists if they have additional information for visits and exchanges.
Please, Diana.
Just as I said before, I mean, do not hesitate to contact CICOPA. I mean, directly or through the workers co-op US Worker Co-op Federation. I mean, if you're interested in to reach out in some specific cooperatives or federations in specific country, I mean, we organize that quite often. We put in contact people, members, and facilitate this kind of exchanges and study visits. So please do not hesitate to write to us. I will put here an email address of my colleague who's in charge of membership. So yeah, this is what we are also have been made for.
And I will add that if you are a member of the US Federation, then please join the International Council. This is why we were made, so that we can help facilitate these types of exchanges. Whenever we learn of opportunities, we try to make sure to pass them on to our members. But if you're participating and coming to the meetings, then you'll hear about it first, or we can then also take the needs of members if there's a large request and then try to connect them to an organization that will be able to serve their needs, where they can learn what knowledge they're missing that they'd like to bring back to their home co-ops. And Jason?
Yeah, well, we may help through our relations with the cooperative movement in Italy, as the Italian Solidarity Economy Network is not made only of co-ops, but of many different kinds of associations and different forms of enterprises. But we are in link with a few of the federations of cooperatives, FederCoop, LegaCoop, differently in the different regions, depending on relations that they already have with our members. So yeah, we can be a contact point, let's say, for that kind of matching, if you're interested in Italy, but also RIPES with the rest of Europe as well.
Okay, Tamina, if you don't mind, I saw the next question come up for Diana. It's, can you tell us more about the Mexican associations linked to CICOPA? Are they active? There are a few in Mexico who would love to connect with local work. So a few of us in Mexico who would love to connect with local CICOPA work.
Yes, indeed. We do have a member in Mexico. CICOPA has a member in Mexico, is the CNC, the Confederación Nacional Cooperativa de Actividades Diversas. It's the only member that we have from Mexico right now. Let me check just at the same time, because there were some changes. Yeah, I confirm. So if there's any will to be in contact with them, to us, I can also provide some contact details. And I guess that, yep.
And someone asked to type the name in the chat for the name of the organization in Mexico. I'm going to take one last question and then we'll thank everyone. So this is from Margaret. It says, Chief Fresh Kitchens, a food catering worker co-op of formerly incarcerated people in Chicago, just formed a housing co-op. This is in response to another question that was asking, are there worker co-ops that have like links to housing co-ops? Any examples? And so then Margaret thankfully gave us a really great example in the US of that. So if anyone else knows of these types of linkages, please let us know. We have a couple of minutes. Let us know in the chat. And I'm also going to just share the screen again and show you some of the ways that you can connect through our peer networks and the different types of organizations that we have specifically for members quickly. Okay. And oh, please.
Jeremy, while you do that, I forgot, since I went first, I didn't put a plug for a conference we are having next week. I put it in the chat, the link for registration. We have Wednesday, October 4th, an all-day programming for where we'll be like for those who cannot travel to Italy or to other places, it might be closer to travel to Washington, D.C. and meet some people from other places, other countries that come to our international programming part of the Coop Impact Conference that NCBCLUSA organizes every year. And it's free of cost and happening next Wednesday. And it's in the chat. Sorry to interrupt.
Thank you for interrupting. This is exactly why we have a collaborative thing. Do our other speakers have any events that they would like to share before we go? We just have 3 more minutes before the end of our time.
Maybe I just want to mention an event that one of our members does every 3 years, every 2 years. It's the Global Social Economy Forum, GSF. This year it was in Dakar, Africa, and in 2025 it will be in Bordeaux. And there this Global Social Economy Forum is mainly organized by cities promoting social economy, and it was started in Korea, but it has members from all over the world, and it's a good sort of space where the cooperative movement, the social solidarity economy movement, and local institutions that are sensitive and work with our same perspective meet, and also international organizations like the UN participate, ILO and other agencies, so 2025 there's time to organize for that, but just to tell you.
And I want to remind everyone that we've been recording this in English and in Spanish, and anyone who's registered should receive a follow-up email to be able to access these recordings so that you can share them with people in your network, people that you cooperate with in your business, and other people that you think would find this interesting. So thank you so much to Jason, Camila, and Diana. It was super interesting. I think I learned a lot. I believe many of the other people here did too. And yeah, we're very grateful. Good end of your morning on the West Coast, good afternoon on the East Coast, and good evening to all of us out here in Europe. Oh, and we have a feedback form. We'll send that out as well. Many thanks.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you. Thanks to all of you. Thanks to the interpreters as well.
Yes,
Yes, yes,
to
definitely. Thank you, interpreters. That's a lot of work for an hour and a half.
Yeah, thank you for all.
Bye, everyone.
Okay. Until next time. Ciao, ciao.